I want to welcome everybody to Zero to Launch podcast series. And the purpose of this series is to help entrepreneurs that are building their technology companies. Maybe it's their first business, maybe they just came up with an idea and looking to launch it. Maybe they already have a company and they're looking to scale it. So the goal of this Zero to Launch series is to help startup founders and entrepreneurs to do it right from the beginning and avoid the common mistakes that companies make. I've been in business for over 10 years. My name is Lena Levine. I run a digital product agency called Procoda. And I've seen so many founders make the same mistakes over and over again. And I just, at some point, I got tired of explaining the same questions and answers to people that I've met, and that motivated and inspired me to start this podcast. So that way we can share the message and share this mission of educating entrepreneurs how to build businesses correctly and help them not to waste time and money. And today I'm excited to have a special guest, Max Ringelheim, who's my friend and colleague. And today we'll be talking about the topic of brands going viral. And I'd like to introduce Max. Max is born and raised New Yorker who moved to Miami in October 2020. He's been a passionate tech entrepreneur for less than 10 years since graduating from University of Buffalo in May 2011. Max started his entrepreneurial career by co-founding a video conferencing software company called Vonvo.com, which was a hybrid of Zoom meets Kickstarter. And Max's biggest success in entrepreneurship came in 2015 when he was responsible for co-founding the global hoverboard fad through his viral brand, Funky Duck, which accumulated over $1 million in sales and over 110,000 followers on social media in less than 8 weeks. And from 2016 to 2019, Max built out his full-time corporate career working in education sales at Little Bits and product marketing at WeWork. And in 2020, Max returned to the entrepreneurial world, developing his own sales and marketing consulting business, where he works for various companies around the world with specialties in education technology, electric mobility, and consumer packaged goods products. Max also building an educational entertainment media company called When Going Viral, which is on mission to become the leading storyteller of viral business phenomena that have captivated the world. So with that said, Max, welcome. It's great to have you here. I'm really excited to talk today about your story and share it with our listeners. So could you tell us a little bit how you got into hoverboard business? What's your background? Just like how you got started.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Lena, for the invite today and for being on your awesome show. It's really, really great to be here. I see some folks in the audience, names that I recognize. Hi, Janine. Thanks for joining. All in all, though, it's really, really great to be here and excited to share some about my story and hopefully valuable nuggets of insights that anyone listening live or in the future can benefit from. In terms of my story, getting into the world of entrepreneurship and what I tell people kind of like my claim to fame within entrepreneurship, the hoverboard story. It started actually back in my undergraduate studies at University at Buffalo, which for everyone here on the webinar, Lena and I, when we first connected, we realized that we had Buffalo ties, and that was fantastic because she built her business in Buffalo, and I attempted to build my first business in Buffalo, but unfortunately, no one back when I was 19 years old was investing in little old Max and his hybrid taxi service he tried starting. But ultimately, I really got hooked into the world of entrepreneurship. I caught the bug of entrepreneurship through a really popular business plan competition at University at Buffalo. I participated in that, 3 different times during my undergraduate studies. I won $10,000 in this business plan competition to launch, as Lena put it, my first video conferencing software company called Vonvo.com back in 2011. And my path into the hoverboard world kind of took place after this company Vonvo unfortunately was unsuccessful. I had to kind of bury it in the graveyard, as I tell folks all the time, right? After 3.5 years of working on it, it just wasn't growing at the rate I was hoping it would. And after moving on from it, it was late 2014, early 2015 when I was exposed to the hoverboard device, this magical device that could drop people's jaws, right? Like people just were fascinated by it. And ultimately, the way in which we discovered it and such, the way in which our company went viral is a phenomenal story that I'm sure Lena will, chip away at some different questions she has regarding it. But all in all, what really turned me into the person that I am here today as a continued entrepreneur really starts back to those days in Buffalo and this business plan competition that I had the opportunity to enter into. And it's now led me back into the world of entrepreneurship here in my early 30s. So, yeah, happy to dive into further detail, Lena, but I'll let you continue to guide it.
Yeah, yeah, thank you for sharing that, Max. So with the hoverboard product, how did you discover it? Did you predict that it's gonna take off so quickly? Like, how much knowledge did you have about the market when you decided to start that business? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So, my two buddies and I, who became my co-founders and my roommates in Queens, New York, at the time, it was late 2014, early 2015. They had discovered the hoverboard device in China at a really, really popular trade show. It's called the Canton Fair. It's in Guangzhou, China. It's still a very, very popular trade show that thousands of people go to be clear. It's very, very popular. And they had discovered the device over there. They instantly fell in love with it. They convinced the trade show booth, that owned the patents to hoverboard technology over in China to let them buy a couple of units and bring them back to the States because they had this hunch or gut feeling that this product was mesmerizing, was going to be a phenomenal, a real winner. And when they came back to the States, they hit me up. They're like, Max, you got to see this new device that we found in China. And I equally, upon seeing it in New York when they brought it back, equally became just as fascinated by it. I as well thought it could be a huge winner. And so, there was definitely a natural instinct of like, wow, this device is the coolest thing since sliced bread. Like, we've got to like really expose the rest of the world to this because no one knew what this device was at the time. No one ever seen it really before. In fact, the product, there was a US patent owner who had created a very similar looking device about 4 years or so earlier, but had never done anything with it. And so, ultimately, when we had discovered the Chinese patented version of it, we ultimately brought it back to the States, had really strong gut feeling that there was a chance this could be a real winning product. And my exposure to the hardware electronics industry was essentially minimal, like very, very minimal. I had not had any experience in hardware electronics, e-commerce, web shop related type industries. That wasn't my background. As I shared before, I was working on a video conferencing software company for 3.5 years prior to that. And, yes, I was an experienced entrepreneur, but I was 23, 24 years old at the time. So certainly not very experienced. But no doubt about it, was super excited about the idea of building a really amazing brand centered around this hoverboard device. And that's exactly what we did.
And it was also very early days of social media before, every other person was a content creator. I feel like now, everyone on social media posting, creating, engaging. So the social media world was completely different. I don't think TikTok existed, and I think at that point it was called Vine, right? So how did you take that brand? Like, did you have a strategy in mind to, scale the business? How did it go viral? What's your
Yeah.
story there?
Yeah. So it's a really, really amazing story. Essentially, the short form version of it would be my two business partners and roommates in Queens, New York. They took a business trip out to Los Angeles. and there was a retail store, a very high-end retail store called Ron Robinson. That was the name of the store. And this particular store had a very high-end clientele. And the owner of that store had invited them out there to show off the hoverboard to his high-end clientele. And while they're at this trade show, or small form trade show, we'll call it, this retail store showing off the device, um, they meet this guy. His name is Dave. They meet him in the parking lot, okay? And Dave sees this hoverboard device and he is fascinated by it. And to be very clear, every single time that we would ride around in our hoverboards from like October 2014 to like February 2015, every single freaking person that would see us riding around these hoverboards would drop their jaw. They'd be like, holy shit, what the hell are these guys doing? How are they floating around this device like a duck in a pond, right? Like just so effortlessly floating in midair essentially on their hoverboard, even though it was on the ground. As we know, the devices had two wheels and they didn't float. But Dave basically becomes fascinated by the device. And when I say, guys, that Dave was best friends with every single freaking celebrity on the planet, he literally was best friends with every single celebrity. He was very, very well known in the hospitality space. So Dave became very fascinated by the device, you know, said, hey guys, like, I think I have clients that I work with that would be very interested in promoting this device because it is so, 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 so cool. And that's essentially what happened. My two roommates get back from New York from this short LA trip. And right after they get off the plane, there is serious rumor that Kendall Jenner from the Kardashian family, who Dave had just introduced the device to, he had showed Kendall some photos and videos of it while my two roommates were out in LA. Kendall wants one of these devices, and Kendall is willing to do anything we want from her if she can get one free hoverboard device. And so essentially, we had sent one of our hoverboards to Kendall. She fell in love with it, and the rest is history. She posted on her social media about our hoverboard device. She had like one of the top 5 followings in the world at the time, 50 million followers on Instagram. Now it's like 200 million, I believe. Kendall, that is. So, you know, you can see sort of over the last 7, 8 years how much her popularity has grown. But she had one of the largest followings in the world at the time and was responsible for our lightning in a bottle moment, right? With literally going viral and turning into an internet sensation overnight with Funky Duck at the front and center of it.
That's amazing. And then was it, how long did that popularity lasted? Was it a long period of time, or was it just kind of, you know, it reached the peak and then you start seeing the decline? Like, how did that transpire?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's a very loaded question because there's so much that happened within a very small time frame. 16 months. That is how long the venture lasted. Okay. So some of what I'm going to share with you guys now, keep in mind, this is a 16-month time period that we're talking about. Okay. To answer your question though, yes, the skyrocketing popularity of Funky Duck and our hoverboard turned into a domino effect, a snowball effect. Okay. From Kendall Jenner, it turned into Jamie Foxx, Justin Bieber, Wiz Khalifa, Ryan Lochte, Kevin Hart, you name it. Every freaking celebrity on the planet all of a sudden was reaching out to Funky Duck directly, like literally hitting us up on our cell phones or our email inbox, our phone for our office on Long Island where we were based out of, saying, hey, Kendall Jenner's got a hoverboard. If that's the case, I need a Funky Duck hoverboard as well. Okay. And so for literally like a 6-month period after that Kendall Jenner video, our phones would not stop blowing up. Our email inbox was literally, I mean, 300 to 500 emails per day type of traction. Okay.
Wow.
Our phones were ringing off the hook. Our follower base, right, was blowing up. We went from essentially 0 followers on like March 15th, 2015 to 25,000 followers on March 17th, 2015. Okay. Like our brand literally turned into an overnight sensation, and those numbers kept climbing for those 16 months thereafter. So within a 2-month period, we had accumulated over 110,000 followers on our social media account. So that gives you a sense of the magnitude of viral traction that we were generating from a social media perspective. And it was a business, right? What did that look like dollars and cents wise? Over $1 million in sales in less than 8 weeks. So we had massive traction. We created this massive domino effect of influencer traction as well as sales traction. And it was an incredibly cool, ridiculously like invaluable type of time period in my life. And happy to share about some of the downsides that came with it because I promise you, although I might live in Miami and Lena are friends here in Miami, this is not Max retired rich at 25 years old in Miami. Uh,
Which
unfortunately,
sounds like most of people in Miami are, but I don't know if I
yeah.
believe them.
Yeah, this is Max, 33 years old, still on the hustle and grind of entrepreneurship. But yeah, I won't give away too much. And if you want to dive into more of the domino effect, happy to share more. If you want to go into some of the downsides, we can talk about that too.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear about that. And with again with social media, with it's business and entrepreneurship, and it's so glamorized these days, and I see so many people faking it till they making it. And I've heard so many stories of people just like renting out the cars and whatnot and houses just to present them in a way that the way different that they are. And it creates this like that almost like a celebrity status around entrepreneurs these days and social media. But people don't talk about the downsides, the grind, the hard work behind the scenes. Like, can you share, maybe lift the veil a little bit, like what was actually happening? And yeah, like what challenges have you experienced while you're working on the business?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so there was a variety of different challenges that we faced during this 16-month period. And it's one of the, I'll tell you, like, it's one of the things that I'm most passionate about 7, 8 years later, post this hoverboard experience. And that is this idea of educating folks like everyone here on this webinar, as well as people that will listen to this afterwards, about the different challenges that can come with going viral and not being prepared for it and not being adequately ready to handle the type of traction that we experience. So I'll shine, if it's cool with you, a little bit of light on some of the challenges that we experience, and I'll shine a light on why this is really, really ridiculously important for people that might be aspiring to go viral or have a business that goes viral, why they need to be cognizant of these things. So, the first thing that I'll call out, right, in terms of a first challenge that we face, I would hands down call the first challenge, in a nutshell, the idea of online fraud. So, we at Funky Duck experienced over $1 million worth of online fraudulent transactions through our website. Why did we experience that? Because we had created this massive tidal wave of viral traction. And what it did is it put a target on our back. What was the target? Essentially, we were selling this premium patented version of a hoverboard. It was a $1,500 hoverboard. It wasn't cheap. Fraudsters online, they like being able to acquire high value goods for $0, right? By stealing other people's credit cards. And because our brand was the number one brand in the world, selling this very high end patented hoverboard, the fraudsters flocked to our website. Why did they flock to our website? Because they knew that if they could successfully receive a hoverboard from us by stealing someone else's credit card for $0, and we ship that hoverboard to this fraudster, guess what? They could then resell that hoverboard on a secondary market for essentially a $1,500 profit, right? And because we were the brand that Kendall Jenner and Justin Bieber were all promoting online, they were able to say, hey, buy one of our hoverboards, right? Our Funky Duck hoverboards, because this is the one that all the celebrities are promoting, right? Why else did we become a target for fraudsters? Because we were getting tons and tons of web traffic to our site. So, Lena, you're in the software development world. You can resonate with this. Like when Business Insider writes an article about you, and the New York Times writes an article about you, and then CNBC invites you onto their, closing bell show, interviewed on, et cetera, et cetera. When you have all this mass media outlets covering your company, what happens? It drives an extraordinary amount of additional web traffic to your site because those media outlets are saying, go and visit funkyduck.com to buy your $1,500 hoverboard, right? And so we were getting flooded with web traffic, so much so that our site would continuously crash because it wasn't prepared or capable of handling this type of web traffic. And ultimately, that leads to a second problem that we faced, which was we didn't have the technical talent readily available to handle this influx of traffic that was taking place, our site crashing, and being able to sustain our site, right, to keep orders flowing. We would have, 1 day long outlets, 2 day long outlets every couple of weeks, right? It would not allow us to collect orders. And going back to the fraudulent remark, all it took was a small slice of that huge amount of web traffic to be online fraudsters who would be really good at their job of, fraudulently purchasing product from us to create massive amounts of headaches for our company. I'll give you one last problem that we faced, and then I'll let you, continue to run with the interview, Lena. One last problem that we faced was not having enough adequate supply of inventory. Okay. Because of how popular the product became, and because of how popular our brand became, we were very, very frequently running out of inventory. We didn't have the available units to ship to customers. We were constantly on back order. And to make matters worse, because of how popular the product got, our manufacturer, was having to ship out hoverboards not just to Funky Duck, but to other new companies that wanted to do business with them. And so, although we were the number one brand, we didn't get treated like that from our manufacturer. In fact, our Chinese manufacturer would lie to us about the expected delivery times of when our hoverboard devices would arrive. And that lying of shipping timelines resulted in us having massive back order situations, massive logistical headaches, trying to figure out who is going to receive which hoverboard of ours that we have left in stock. And that just ultimately created a huge, similar to the domino effect of popularity we gained, created a massive domino effect of negative, business problems that we were trying to have to solve for day in, day out.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the fulfilling the orders when you hit in such a high volume of sales very quickly, that's I would imagine that would have been one of your top challenges. So like balancing that, right? Forecasting how many orders you're gonna receive, fulfilling those orders. I see this as a very common challenge for people in retail businesses. So, and actually with that said, I'm curious, I do see we have a few people in the audience today. If you can post in a Q&A chat, I'm curious what type of businesses everybody working on. If you sell in product, if you have a service-based company, or if you have a technology startup, whether you have an app, web mobile application that you're promoting, could you mention in the chat? Just want to, check the temperature of the room and see who's working on what project at the moment, or what kind of businesses you're running. So,
if anyone has any questions, here in the audience, know that I'm happy to provide answers to anything that you might be thinking top of mind regarding this story or some other advice you're looking for in the world of business, virality, marketing, sales, etc. So don't be shy and feel free to post in the chat if you have any questions.
Okay, so okay, I guess our audience is feeling shy today. Well, I'll return to that later to see if anyone responded. But Max, I wanted to ask you about your going viral entertainment media company that you're working on now. So I imagine your experience with the Hoverboard brand inspired you now to focus on building this media company when going viral. Could you share a little bit about your vision for this uh, new company building?
Yeah, absolutely. So very simply, right after the hoverboard experience, I was 25 years old, and I felt very, very much so, Lena, inspired to want to share this story of mine with the broader business community. Okay. And essentially, the way that I did that was the following. I started doing some blogging, I started writing a book outline, started doing some public speaking. Um, and where I found my strength was in the public speaking world. And so, what started off as like 10-minute long presentations about this hoverboard story eventually evolved into like multi-hour long workshops about this hoverboard story and the different educational takeaways from it. And for me, I just felt really, really empowered to want to share all these amazing insights and lessons learned and takeaways, the positives, the negatives that had come from this story with the broader business community. And so over the last now, 7, 8 years, that has now evolved into me creating an educational entertainment media brand. And the name of that company is called When Going Viral. And the mission behind it is to share the stories or become the leading storyteller behind different viral business phenomenons. And why that's really, important to me is because I know for a fact that my story has amazing takeaways, lessons learned for anyone in the business world to gain from. But my story is one of many, many other viral business phenomenons that exist. Think about Pokemon Go. If you think about the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, if you think about Bird or Lime scooters, Nike sneakers, like any one of these
Mhm.
companies, right, have built viral traction, some of whom have sustained their viral traction and have continued to build super successful, profitable businesses, and others that have flamed out, the hoverboard, etc. And so, what I want this When Going Viral media brand to be all about is sharing the different stories about these amazing viral business phenomenons that have captivated the world and do it in various different media channels, whether that's docu-series, whether that's a podcast, whether that's public speaking, you name it. There are all these different traditional and non-traditional mediums where you can share these stories. And my When Going Viral media brand is all about sharing those stories that people can gain a lot of amazing, amazing educational value from them. And so, yeah, that's like what I'm most recently working on. That's like my new entrepreneurial venture that I'm working on. And I believe that there's a lot of eyeballs and ears that would tune in to these stories. It's just a matter of creating it successfully, creating really amazing content, and ultimately that's going to come in time. But that's what I'm working on these days.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And I see Janine responded. So she's building entrepreneur community. Interesting. Thank you, Janine. And with that, actually, I have a follow-up question. So, and based on your experience, by interviewing different brands that went viral, and you now building this media company and being around the different successful brands, can you tell that the brands that going viral, do they have to fall in a particular niche? Does it have to be the consumer product, or can it be an app? Can it be hardware, software, like yeah.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, I like to advise companies that are interested in trying to go viral on a few different key best practices that I've just personally seen great success with. Okay. One of them, or one of these pieces of advice, is if you or your company or product is looking to go viral, you want to be able to trigger very real emotions in people. Those emotions could be positive, negative emotions. It could be happy, sad, glad, surprise, whatever it might be. And the reasons why you want to be able to create serious emotion in people is twofold. Number one, if someone experiences a really powerful emotion, they're very likely to want to have other friends, network connections, people within their community to experience that same emotion. It's the same reason why people send one another different, Instagram reels or TikTok videos, because they want people to experience that same element of emotion that they experience a couple of minutes earlier, a couple of seconds
Hmm.
earlier. And so having a product, campaign, business that's able to trigger really high-end emotions is a really, really important element to being able to experience viral traction. I think the next, and the one emotion that resonates most with me is what I call the jaw dropper effect. Okay. I think there is something inherently tied to virality involving the jaw dropper effect. If you can have people's eyelids go wide or jaw fall to the ground, like there is
Yeah.
no doubt that you can feel pretty confident that you've got uh, 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 a very close opportunity to see that type of viral traction take place. Granted, there's a lot of things that need to go right in terms of execution, and then seeing that jaw dropper effect happen across thousands of people, then millions of people, then maybe billions of people. But that is one particular characteristic and emotion that I think is a really strong one business folks, people in marketing should
Hmm.
go after if they've got an interest in virality. Um, and yeah, we can talk in more detail about those emotions or other specific things, related to certain types of products as well.
Hmm.
But that's one thing that I uh, write home about all the time, and share really frequently.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And so I'd love to dig a little bit, dig deeper into that topic. So when would you talk about evoking emotions in people, have you seen any methods that work the best? Is it, how do you grab someone's attention, right? Because these days I don't think it's even 3 seconds anymore with, reels. It's like people just, if it's, yeah, it doesn't catch them the first couple seconds, they just, keep scrolling. So how can we grab people's attention and keep that attention when we try to create the virality, if you have any advice on that?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, I mean, there's no doubt that you're going to capture right someone's attention by having something of value that they're going to want to give the 3 or 10 seconds worth of attention towards. In the world of hoverboards, right? The value that we were providing was this completely new form of transportation that no one had ever seen before, right? That other people wanted to experience themselves, right? I know, like, on the surface, the hoverboard might have seemed like this, like, you know, crazy device that was exploding and catching fire and all those other issues that took place with the device that certainly were part of the story that we didn't get to, which is fine. But think about it, like, in the end, the real value that it was providing was an ability for people to get from point A to point B in a really cool manner that was new, sexy, exciting, cool,
Mhm.
etc. And that was the value that we were providing to people that was continuing to captivate people's attention. And it only just helps fuel the virality when you have really profound people, really popular people doing it. At the same time, right? You think about mobile apps that go viral all the time, right? Like the most one of the most popular mobile games ever, Angry Birds, right? They
Mm.
went popular because they had like both a great brand, but also a really fun, sticky type of game, right? Um, Children, teens, etc., were gravitating towards this brand and the fun games associated with these silly looking birds, right? But that had these really cool interactive games associated with them. Personally speaking, right? Like, I consult for a company called Prize Picks in the fantasy sports betting world. They've recently experienced enormous amounts of viral traction millions of people downloading their app because of the fact that they also have created a really sticky, unique, novel type game and have really owned providing a super satisfactory experience to people when they're playing the game, right? So I think a lot of it ultimately drives towards what type of value you're delivering for the end customer and what type of experience they're getting. If you provide a shitty experience, right, people are not going to tell their friends about it and tell other folks to go download that game or spend their hard-earned money towards it. It's got to be a value add to people and a benefit to people's lives to want to, pay attention and provide time, effort, energy, mind space, etc., towards it. And so, hopefully, that is one of the key things that your audience can take away if they're looking to try and again go viral is be providing a satisfactory, positive, valuable experience to the end customer. That's going to go far and away further towards a popular business than just like one maybe viral video that gains traction for a day or two, but doesn't have any output at the end that's providing value to people.
Yeah, yeah. And you already kind of touched on that, the apps and games, being sticky and the products being sticky. But, based on your experience working with different brands, is there any formula maybe or other key elements that go into building, launching, and scaling those innovative products and making them going viral?
For sure. Yeah. So, I mean, look, like when it comes to uh, uh, the idea of building, launching, and scaling a successful business that can go viral, right? I mean, it starts with that launch phase, right? What are the key questions that you as an entrepreneur are asking yourselves that you can have a successful launch, right? Uh, are we gonna try and fuel our initial virality with additional virality on top of it, or are we gonna try and take a step back after we get our initial viral traction? What particular marketing channels are we going to be trying to dominate in, or are we going to just pick one and really own that one? What particular activations are we going to launch with, right? Over the first 24 hours, over the first 72 hours, over the first 7 days, 14 days, 30 days? What does that plan look like? These are all mission critical questions ahead of the launch, especially if you're trying to launch for viral purposes that you need to be asking yourselves. Because if you're not asking yourself these questions, you kind of just do it on a whim, kind of like what we did with Funky Duck, guess what? There's very likely going to be some collateral damages that you're not eyes wide open to and aware of that are going to come and bite you in the ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, you got to be asking yourself these really tough questions ahead of that launch so you don't just do it and ultimately see yourself run into the domino effect problems that I was referencing before with the hoverboard story that we ran into after an amazing launch. Don't get me wrong, our launch was a 10 out of 10 in terms of publicity, traction, notoriety, growing our social media presence, et cetera, right? Like we crushed our launch, but we were not privy to the different challenges that we were going to face if certain things didn't go our way. And when not just a few certain things didn't go our way, but a cluster F of things didn't go our way, created major issues, right? When I think about like the scale phase, right? The scaling phase of trying to then have, okay, you had a successful launch. Now, what does the scale 6 months from now, 12 months from now look like? Do we have a good grip on our operations? And are our operations strong? Are our operations in a position to scale, right? Do we have a good sense of which teams are impacted 6 months after launch, 12 months after launch, and where are the resources to help those teams? Do we have a real strong ability to handle different roadblocks that are bound to pop up? And which are going to be the experts in the room on the team handling those roadblocks, right? Because I sure as hell didn't know how to get my website back up and running when it crashed. But could we have a CTO at Funky Duck who could have handled that? much better than I did, of course, that would have been the smart thing in retrospect. So, having those specialists, having those experts who can handle those roadblocks, I think there's no doubt in this day and age, right? When we think about where businesses are today, like there's a lot of automation to take advantage of some of the scaling elements, right? Scaling, Nike sneakers back in, the 90s versus scaling Nike sneakers here in 2023 is, night and day differences, right? When we think about scaling either the marketing channels or the supply chain elements,
Yeah.
right? So finding different ways in which you can leverage different proper tooling, whether that's, a CRM program or a marketing automation program or an email delivery service provider program, which particular automation is going to fuel the virality that we're looking for in this scale phase?
Mhm.
Are there different repeatable processes that we can create playbooks around, right? Versus like trying to just do things day by day on a one-off basis. Like that wouldn't be
Mhm.
smart. So these are just some of the different things that folks here listening need to be thinking about, as they go from launch to scale. And hopefully that's helpful to the audience.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. And do you think that if we're looking at the market, back in 2015, and we're looking at the market right now, right? There are so many new tools, there are so many new marketing platforms that appeared, but at the same time, market is so much more saturated with content, with different companies and brands that fight for consumers' attention. Do you Based on your experience, do you think it's easier now to to go viral and get in front of the people, or is it more challenging, or do you think it hasn't really changed?
I mean, I think the answer to that question, and like I'm not the first person saying this, people like Gary Vaynerchuk and many others talk about it all the time. Like, there's no guarantees in this world of viral marketing. It's very, very slim pickings of who gets an
Mm,
opportunity to do it. There's a lot of different things that need to go right in your favor in order for it to happen. Obviously, like creating a viral video versus creating a viral business, two night and day situations, right? And the person who's going for like churning out new viral videos each day, hoping that one of them hits, like that's a lot different and has a lot more, I believe, chance for eventually experiencing some viral traction versus the person who's got to go through the product development phase and then the fundraising phase and then the team building phase to create a viral business. They're two totally separate things that people need to obviously realize. I'm sure folks do realize that, but
mm,
it's important that we look at those two things as different, and they're not exactly the same by any stretch. And then when we think about like, is it easier, is it harder, the answer is it's fucking hard. That's the real answer. Okay. It's not easy. Okay, because if it's easy, everyone would fucking do it, right? So
exactly.
that's not the case. The answer is it's very hard, and the answer is it's going to be a small minority that's going to get that type of luck to strike their way and take advantage of it. And I'm a big believer in like creating your own luck, right? Putting yourself out there enough and doing the right things to hopefully create your own luck. But the answer is that's really, really difficult. It's really, really challenging, and only a small number are going to be able to experience it. Obviously, though, because of how much more dedicated time, effort, energy people put into this, category of virality,
Mm,
you see more and more things pop up as viral,
mm,
throughout the week, throughout the month, right? So because there's more players involved in the industry, obviously more things catch on, gain traction. You know, they might not show up in your feed, but they'll show up in, a couple of other millions of other people's feeds, right? And but in a nutshell, it's really, really freaking hard. And I would say that the tools to make it happen have gotten easier, but that doesn't mean that all of a sudden it's easy. It's still really, really challenging, and there's no guarantees whatsoever. And um, ultimately, I know that many other people a lot smarter than I, agree with that sentiment. So hopefully that's
mm.
helpful for your audience.
Yeah, thank you, Max. So, and I know we coming to the top of the hour. So, if anyone in the audience has questions, please post them in the Q&A box. We'd be happy to answer them. Whether you have questions about, taking your brand viral, scaling the business, any questions for Max. So please let us know, Bruce, James, Janine, Ken. So
Yeah.
we'd be happy to answer them.
Well,
So,
and ultimately, what I
yeah,
would say, Lena, like, is, like one of my biggest takeaways that I'm always giving people advice on, right? And I just want to make sure I can like highlight this for your audience is there are serious factors that entrepreneurs must consider before just hoping and wishing and dreaming that their company goes viral. Why? Because if the proper planning isn't conducted ahead of time,
right.
you could jeopardize your entire business, right? And that's what
Right.
I experienced. And it's those kinds of lessons learned that I'm trying to pay forward that people can gain from and not make those same types of mistakes that I made at 24, 25 years old. And I try to incorporate that type of lesson learned into everything that I do now from a business perspective.
Yeah. And I think that's an amazing experience to have that early in your entrepreneurial journey, because now you get to apply it to all your future endeavors. So I think that's incredible opportunity.
Yeah.
So we do have a question from James. He's asking, did the venture fail mainly due to the lack of product to sell?
Yeah. James, that's a great question. And I would say that that's one contributing factor for why our venture failed. Um, the other contributing factors, though, that are really important to recognize, James, is you might be familiar with some of the news headlines back in 2016. Right after the holiday season, don't buy hoverboards; they'll explode in your home. Or XYZ person breaks their elbow falling off a hoverboard.
Oh my God,
Or
that was me. That was me on my on my 30th birthday. I fell off the hoverboard, and that was my sign. I was like, that's it. I'm too old for this. I was like, that's the Mother Nature's telling me I have to stop messing around.
yeah. So like those headlines created a major, major issue for the marketplace, James. And that issue is that the government came in and banned the device. What do I mean by they banned the device? The Consumer Product Safety Commission, otherwise known as the CPSC, sent out a mass message to all the different companies that were trying to sell hoverboards, Funky Duck included, saying, until we can verify that your batteries are approved and safe, you can no longer sell this device. Okay. What else happened? FedEx, UPS, the big shippers, they banned shipping hoverboards. So you can imagine having to own a hoverboard business, but you can't sell the device. That's no bueno, as we say here in Miami, okay? No good. You can't sell hoverboards any longer. You can't ship them to customers. People from California aren't driving to Funky Duck's office in New York to pick up their hoverboard. Absolutely not, right? So between the fires that started taking place with the cheap knockoffs that were selling for like 3, 4, $500, between the government stepping in and banning the device because of the concerns they had with exploding hoverboards, and between the FedEx and UPSs of the world banning the shipping of the device, what happened at Funky Duck? We had a chokehold around our neck, a noose around our neck. We could no longer essentially operate confidently because there was all this crazy things happening in real time that we were having to react to in real time. And as a result, those are some of the other contributing factors on top of not having enough product to sell. I mentioned our different fraudulent issues that were taking place, right, with online fraud. There was a huge groundswell of issues. And what I would sum it up with is when we would solve one problem, like our fraud issue, 3 new problems would bubble up to the surface. And then we'd solve one of those issues, and then 3 new problems would bubble up to the surface. And so it was a consistent grind. And eventually I just moved on. I was like, you know what? This is a fad. I got to move on with my life. Like we can't sell these, we can't ship these. I'm going to move on to a new venture and a new opportunity after 16 months.
Wow, crazy. So the fast rise and face fast fall, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So Ken says great stuff. I have to drop off. Thank you, Ken. So well, and I'm gonna, just before we wrap up, I'm gonna share my screen with the contact information for both of us. So if anyone has questions for Max or myself, here's our contact information on the screen. So please shoot us a message on social media, email, check out our website. So we're happy to answer your questions and help you with your businesses, help you to get unstuck, and help you scale and grow to the best of
I
our
see that
abilities. So yeah.
I see Janine raised her hand. I don't know if that means she has a question she wants to put in the chat or she wants to
Oh,
come on video. I don't know. I've never used this particular video
oh,
conference, but did you
I,
get that
I,
also?
yeah, I see it. I'm not sure what does the raise hand mean.
You want to type your question
Uh,
in, Janine, or were you looking to come on video? I don't even know if that's possible. So,
I know that's a good question.
but all in all, Janine, happy to answer whatever question you have, or you can type it in the chat. Oh, I saw a hoverboard this week.
Your
I
legacy lives on.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly chime in on that, if it's helpful for the audience to realize, like, the last couple of years, hoverboards, have been a top 10 Christmas gift, during the holiday season. So, companies like Jetson, which is a very popular hoverboard brand, they have, sold millions of hoverboards over the last couple of years. So it's still a fairly popular product, from a consumer perspective, but the real difference is obviously here in 2023, the type of pizzazz and popularity that hoverboards has is much, much less than what it was in 2015, right? The real spice, the real sexiness, the real cool factor was back in 2015 when no one had heard about the device and that people were just hearing about it for the first time, using it for the first time. These days, it's still a very popular product that companies sell as part of a suite of other products. Like Jetson sells electric bikes, they sell hoverboards, they sell electric skateboards, and companies like Walmart and Target still sell them very, very much so. It just doesn't have the same type of appeal as it had back in 2015. That's all.
Yeah. Awesome. Alrighty. Any more final thoughts, questions before we wrap up here?
Enjoy the discussion, Lena, my friend. Did you have a good time?
Yes, this is awesome. I really enjoyed hearing about your story, Max. I got a lot out of it. Now I already have some thoughts in my head. I was like, what can I do to make my brand go viral? So gotta have a
Yeah,
follow-up conversation on that.
yeah.
So, but yeah, this was fascinating discussion, and thank you for sharing your story and all your insights.
You're so, so welcome. I'm really glad we got a chance to do this finally, and I'm really glad that you'll be able to use this for future content purposes for your business, for yourself, etc. So happy to have joined, and I appreciate everyone tuning in and showing up to listen in, and hopefully you guys caught our contact info at the end. If there's any questions, don't be shy. I'm very, very, very much so open to helping aspiring entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs, savvy, seasoned entrepreneurs, and paying my lessons forward so that other people can learn from them. So definitely know that you don't have to be shy, and anyone that was on this webinar can think of me as a mentor to them for the future. So don't hesitate to reach out.
And thank you for sharing. Alrighty, well, thank you everybody. Great having you here today with us, and I hope you have an amazing week. And we'll see you soon.
Amazing. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, guys. Appreciate the time and talk to y'all soon.